Good evening, everybody. I can't believe it's been a whole week already since the last stream. Time just is absolutely flying by at the moment. So before I get into some work in the engine, I thought it would be nice just to give you a quick sneak peek of the upcoming Kickstarter page, which is going live on the 1st of March. So what's that? So we've got 6 days. Blimey, it's coming around really, really quickly. We've still got a few bits and pieces to do, but I think we're practically there. So this is our page. We're going for 75,000 as our goal. We've got a little bit about the story of what the game is. Some details on the ship simulation and what that's all about. The Galaxy Sim and what that's all about. Little example there of what the alien race procedural dice rolls are going to look like. Got a bit about the actual gameplay itself. Hopefully we can inspire confidence that we're going to see this through to the end. Yeah, this is very much a passion project, so funded or not, we're still going to keep going with it. Claire made this really nice word cloud of some comments that people have made about the demo and previous stress tests. It's really cool to see all that. It's quite humbling. Here's our rewards that we're planning to attach to the various tiers. A little bit of blurbage about the actual funding itself. These are our stretch goals, and that's essentially going to be more content for the early access release, and obviously early access quicker, the more funding we get. A little bit on the platform and our release price. There's a cringy photo of myself and Claire, and Claire sent this to me, and I thought, we won't use this. But then I thought, actually, why not? It's a bit of fun, isn't it? Shows how serious and professional we are. And then just a few bits and pieces about videos and the usual stuff you get on Kickstarter. So yeah, this is our campaign. So no idea how it's going to go. We might hit the target, we might not. We might smash through the stretch goals, we might not. But yeah, we'll just have to take it as it comes and hope for the best. But there was actually one thing I needed to do on this, because I've split the Admiral rank into Rear Admiral and Vice Admiral, so we can include designing of shuttles and small vehicles. So what I just need to do is I need to add that on here. If I can remember how. So right, so Admiral needs to be Rear Admiral. And yeah, and then we need a Vice Admiral as well. So Vice Admiral, and that one's 2,500. Nope, no physical goods. Can't remember which way round I do this. Do we start with that one? I will start with that one for now. Digital rewards. And we'll go for December this year. Unlimited quantity. No time limit. I'll fill out the list later because that's kind of fiddly. That should give us our second tier. Great. Perfect. Star Trek Maniac, what is the end goal for the game? Blimey. It has a really wide scope. while I've got this page in front of me, well, I think I said it best here, really. It's a game of two parts. You've got the Starship simulation itself, so fully simulated Starship, every system properly, wired to real simulated electric, simulated as deeply as we can, including the crew, the shift rotations, everything we can think of simulating a real vessel in space. But then also, alongside that, we've got the galaxy simulation. So that's a real astrophysically correct simulation of the galaxy, filled with alien life and whatever other interesting stuff we can think of to throw in there. And marrying those two sides of the game together, that's where the gameplay comes from. So you take your ship, you explore the galaxy, and then gameplay comes naturally from the things that you discover and interact with. Yeah, so when it says design an alien race, let me come back down to that. So starting with designing a star system, I'm going to write a web tool, probably just a PHP front end, which it runs the same math that the game uses to work out things like habitable zones, hill spheres, and all the astrophysics around establishing what is a scientifically plausible star system. So you'll have the freedom to decide, for example, where you want a gas giant to go, how many gas giants you'd like within the system, what those planets are called, and various particulars about those planets. But what the tool will do was it will ensure that you can't have like an ice giant right up against the star, because that's not scientifically possible. So it will allow you to customize the star system within some guardrails. With the designing an alien race, that will be a case of the star system that you design obviously will have to have a habitable world, and then you design the alien race for that world. So once we've built the system for things like tech level, societal outlook, level of xenophobia, once all those things are established, then you'll be able to use those sliders to decide exactly what kind of alien race you want to produce, and then you can name that race, you can give them a backstory, you can customize what their political system looks like. So you're in every way designing that entire alien society and what their outlook is in the galaxy. Obviously we'll have to curate some of that, make sure that there's nothing offensive, there's nothing NSFW, we don't want the galaxy to be filled with, I don't know, like penis monsters. I'm thinking back to Spore and how terribly that went when it was first released. So we will make sure that everything that's designed by players is properly curated and it doesn't ruin the galaxy. Yeah, nothing IP breaking. You can't make Klingons. That's just that's not going to fly. Any plans to implement missions or space battles? Yes. So initially, the base game is going to be procedural. So all of the missions and tasks and things are going to be procedurally generated from a deep pool of possible scenarios. So when you meet an alien race, you'll get a multiple choice dialogue chain to work your way through. And they might have a request of you, maybe, as much as it pains me, go gather some ore. We don't really want to kind of fall back on fetch quests, but it'll be that sort of thing. There might be the case that perhaps they're having a better example. There's a planet, you've got two nations there. They're in conflict with one another, and you can help one or both or neither with whatever it is they might need, and your choice will affect the outcome of the political situation on that planet. So it's things like that we want to implement in a procedural way. There'll still be a scattering of, we need this vital resource, we need these medical supplies, go get them for us, to help win their favour. But we'll try and make that as interesting and as varied as we can. So that's going to be in the base game, in the sandbox, all procedural. We're also going to write a full story-driven campaign where all of that's going to be handcrafted. So the main races will be handcrafted. The story itself is handcrafted. If you go off track, you'll encounter all the procedural stuff. But if you stick to the story elements, then that will all be handcrafted story. Well, it's funny you should say submarine shuttle. I mean, I was thinking that all shuttles should be submarine capable. I know that in some ways that's not particularly realistic because in space you're dealing with one atmosphere of pressure, in a full vacuum, whereas under an ocean you've got potentially hundreds of atmospheres worth of pressure. So structurally they're not quite the same. But it would be nice to have some kind of underwater mechanic with the shuttles. But we'll look into that. That's probably the next iteration beyond even implementing planetary surfaces. I've currently set the Kickstarter to end on March 31st at midnight. So that's going to be a Sunday night, which gives us 30 days, the whole of March. When you land on the planets, will you be able to explore the entire planet? Yes. So we'll be... so, sort of like Starfield, you'll have to have a transition between space and the surface. But unlike Starfield, that's going to be dependent on simply where you fly the shuttle down. So we'll capture the surface coordinates of where the shuttle reaches a certain altitude, and then there'll be a brief transition, and then the shuttle will be flying above the planet at that same coordinates. You'll then be free to fly around the planet in the shuttle looking for somewhere to land, and it will be the full planetary surface seamlessly generated procedurally. In terms of cities and things, I've been sort of thinking along the lines of the villagers in Minecraft and how those villages are spawned. I think something like that would be nice for low-tech planets. Just having sort of low-tech, sort of villager-style settlements dotted all around the planet that you can interact with. That's a lot easier than, say, a full city with roads and cars and trains and planes, and that's that sort of thing. That the scale of that is huge. I don't think we're going to have anything on the level of microtech in Star Citizen, but we will have city planets. But I'm going to assume that we'll only have city planets from orbit, unless we significantly expand the development team. It's not really viable to make full surface city planets, not at this point anyway. Plans for transporter? No. So we won't ever, well, at least not in the human tech, we won't be implementing transporters. Simply because everything in the game is based on either established real-world science or at least theoretical real-world science. Even the FTL has theoretical papers associated with it. Transporters or teleportation in general, there are no science papers which even hint at the possibility of that being possible or plausible in any way. I think the last one I read said something about in order to track and record the direction and spin of every atom that makes up a single human being, it would take like the entire universe's worth of energy. I'm not quite sure how that works out, but you know, it's that kind of scale of a problem. So yeah, unless we have some really advanced aliens with that tech already that they figured out, we certainly won't be doing it for humans. Have they transported molecules? I don't recall ever reading anything about that. I'll have to look it up. Could be wrong. Anyway, right, so what was I doing? So if anyone was watching last week, we were working on the galactic positioning UI, and that's all working now, and you can manually set your location and switch between the ship or the manual position. That's all working nicely, but what it's not doing is it's not updating the holo display. Hi John, catching crash during playtesting. Yeah, Unreal Engine already does that. It already dumps a crash log to the hard drive. It should be in your saved folder, I believe. Thanks, Fopace. I certainly intend to be streaming more often now. I think I said this last week, but I can never really be sure that what it is I'm doing on stream is in any way engaging. Claire says I have a very monotonous, monotone voice, so hopefully I'm not putting everyone to sleep. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting challenge. Oh wow, 5 times. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, so the way this holo display works, and at the moment it is only connected to the sensors. Eventually it's going to have to connect to every bridge station and be able to mirror the output from every bridge station. But all of this is literally just for the sensors, so this is going to be quite a big system in the end. But what we're having to do, because when we change the display range here, we need to be able to change the scale of the displayed galaxy here. Now, if I recall, I was doing that here. It's been probably over a year since I last looked at this blueprint, so bear with me while I try and work out what on earth I did a year ago. Okay, so we're getting the sector coords from the galaxy coordinates, and then we are moving the ship Yeah, okay, so we're moving the ship and not the map. Oh, thanks, Star Trek Maniac. I'll look into that. Yeah, I remember there was some talk about quantum computers and having teleported something, but I recall reading that it wasn't what they said it was, and it wasn't true teleportation. But yeah, I'll look into that. So some of the Kickstarter rewards can go out immediately. So things like ranks on Discord, access to dev builds, some wallpapers. There are those sorts of things we can just deliver as soon as Kickstarter succeeds. If it succeeds, hopefully it'll succeed. Other things like designing ships and shuttles, those things are going to have to wait until the game is ready for those things. Obviously I've got the main ship to finish first, and once that's done we can then look on to other things. But that said, if the Kickstarter succeeds really, really well, and we have enough to take on multiple new developers, then I can set them to work on building some of those things. So it might be the case that if we succeed well at Kickstarter, we can have multiple work streams happening in parallel and get it all delivered a lot quicker. Yeah, right now it's literally just me, or rather, it's literally just me doing the development work. We got Claire that handles practically everything else. She does all the social media and all the most of the businessy type side of things. We've got a separate composer, Eric from Orchestorm. He does the music for us, and it's really, really good. And then we've also got Jose, who does the sound effects within the game. I need to work with him a lot more closely, actually, because I've been so busy with what I've been doing. I haven't given him the time he needs to add more sounds to the game. So that's something that we're planning after Kickstarter. When the dust has settled a little bit, I need to spend a lot more time with Jose working on the game's sounds. But yeah, that's the team as it stands. I think the biggest thing that we want to get from Kickstarter is that ability to expand the team and take on more developers, because it's such a big game, such a wide scope. We just need more bodies involved, working on different things. Right. Okay, so when the galaxy coordinates are updated, i.e. when the ship moves, we check to see whether we're on the galaxy mode, and then we move the ship accordingly on that map. Okay, that's simple enough. But we also need to capture the scale of the zoom level that we're entering on the nav panel. So we need to communicate that out somehow. The easy way would be to get a reference to the blueprint and cast to it, but we should always avoid casting at all costs if we possibly can, because that just creates horrible reference chains and lots of just unnecessary memory bloat. So I think what we'll do we have any blueprint interfaces? Okay, only the electrical system. We don't want that one. think what I will do... Right, we'll use the UNOS one. So this blueprint interface is used for communicating between the various UI panels. So logically, it would make sense to use that for the holo display as well, because they are connected. Also, need to broadcast that out as an event. So since I wrote this blueprint where I was multicasting things from the player controller, if I recall, I've since shifted to using rep notify instead, which is a hell of a lot more reliable. Okay, we're definitely replicating, so because one of the previous challenges we had was that new joining clients weren't receiving the latest picture of what things are actually doing in the game world. They were just loading up their defaults. So what we need then, so we need let's call it GPS. So we need a GPS scale, and that can just be an integer. And then we also need a manual target location. Yeah, so when we switch to our manual target, that needs to be also fed through to the holo display. Fortunately, this doesn't have any widgets happening on it, so it can replicate quite happily without having to kind of crowbar replication into a widget. Right, so you can be rep notify, and so can you. That just ensures that if any players join after this has been set, then they'll get the latest value and it will update the map accordingly. Yeah, because the relationship between the holo display and what used to be called the nav panel, which is now the sensors, it's quite a one-to-one relationship right now, and I need to dial that back, because once I add other outputs on the holo display, we don't want it too heavily connected to the sensors, which means this has to operate standalone and track its own data. So the console will send data to the holo display in a fire and forget way, and then the holo display will just manage that data itself. It's probably the easiest way of handling that, which means that will also have to become a rep notify variable, and then this switch will happen on the rep notify. So again, any joining players will make sure that they get the most recent state of the holo display immediately upon joining. That's going to be a task. I'll leave that for now. That's going to have to be a bit of a rewrite to get all that done. Right, so then, on here, let's follow this through. So, we press our button, it goes to the parent blueprint, where it sends that to the player controller, which converts that to a server authoritative event, which then has the rights to update the variable for replication. And then that's sent through back to the widget as a replicated action. But what we want to do here, so when we update the sensor range, there's another thing we want to do on the back of this, and that is to send a global event. So we want to send global event by class. Yeah, and then we're going to have to make a class for that. Now the beauty of using a global event is that anything that might be interested in knowing what the GPS range limit is currently set to can just pick up that event and run with it. And the sensor's parent blueprint doesn't need to care what other blueprints is picking up this information. It's completely anonymous. It just says, I've updated my range. There it is, to the world. So here we go, I've updated my range. And then whatever's listening to that can do something with it. But we need to create the event, which I need to remind myself how to do. So we've got one of these, so we want to duplicate that, so we've got event. And so that would be sensors GPS range. Right, and then we don't need any of these, we just need integer. Right, so that's essentially a container for our information. And then we want that in the right folder. Right, and then we need to construct that. Still a different one. No, actually I don't need to, I can do it from here. So this one. I'll do it on here. So we will broken. So we need to construct object from class. Then we need to select our class, which is event GPS sensor range. And then we'll promote that to a variable. So event GPS, that one. Payload will be that. And then these. Actually, speaking of not wanting to cast to anything, I do actually need to cast to this one. So we cast to the event container, then we set the mode. Hang on, what am I missing? Help if I name the variable properly. There we go. So set the GPS range with that. Okay, and that gets our global event broadcast. Yep, that's fine. Sorry, I've been focusing on this and ignoring the chat. Okay, so if you're an engineer, you'll have, well, two things. You'll have a handheld tool, which you'll be able to wave at things to get some data, like health level, that sort of thing. But also, every crew member is wearing an AR headset. So if you imagine, I guess they're quite old-fashioned these days, the old Bluetooth headpieces for phones, it'll look something like that. So it'll just be something sat above the ear, and that's what's protecting the HUD that you see in game. So when you turn the HUD on and off, the character will actually raise their hand to the side of their head and just tap the device. And the idea with this device is that when you pick something up, like a weapon, for example, it will automatically connect to that device, and with a weapon it'll give you the ammo readout, the charge level, in like a smart display, essentially, with this AR device. With the tutorial, we're going to have like a physical path, like 3D, going around, leading you places, again as part of the AR display on the headset. So things like highlighting a pipe and getting information about that pipe, it will be displayed on your AR headset, but you'll use a tool to be able to access that information. So the physical tool will do the scanning, but the readout will be on your display. so assuming I did this right, because it's a little bit fiddly to get these global events going, but so we've got our container, we cast to that, we set the variable, we then send a global event using that container, which means on the holo display, which is what all of these are, we simply put our event handler, and then we bind global events by class, and that is our GPS range. And then we create that, which is GPS range updated, and then our payload, which again we have to cast to. So we cast to the payload, and we get GPS range, and there we go. Now we have our value. This is going to need sanitizing at some point. It's getting a little bit spaghettified. Okay, so the sensor range is updated, we fire our global event, then the holo display picks up that global event like magic and then does something with it. And now what we want to do in this case, so on our galaxy, no, not the galaxy map, yes, it is the galaxy map. So so that's just a plane. That's the shadow underneath. So that one and that one. Right, so this is going to be a little bit of trial and error to get the scales correct. So obviously we've got what I assume is a 1 meter. Yeah, it's a 1 meter plane, which we're scaling to 5 meters, and then we are working out what that is. So basically, we're translating 100,000 light years to 5 meters. But if we change the 5 meters to something else, then obviously that scale then has to change. And that's the fun math thing that's going to trip me up. Right. So that means you and you to set relative scale. Actually, there might be an easier way of doing this. Because if we do it as... So 100,000 light years would be 5 meters. So 50,000 would be 2.5 meters. We can do that as a multiplier rather than something more convoluted. But obviously, let's do that. Make sure this is running on the server, not the client. So yeah, this is server authoritative action, so we are setting the scale, which means So this needs to happen here, because it needs to happen when new clients join. Right, so then we get our scale, and if I'm not mistaken, that's from 10 to 1,000. Yeah. Yeah, so if really right, so 10 to 1,000. So we know that 1,000 would be 5. It's easy actually, go 0 to 1,000. That should work. So that would be 6, because that's that one, the background. Don't need to scale the Z-axis, or sorry, Z-axis for the American audience. So using map range clamped is probably a really lazy way of doing this, but I'll try it. So the other thing we need to do, that will scale the map itself, but it won't have any impact on the location of the ship. Because that also needs to adjust depending on the scale. Can't remember why I'm multiplying that by half. It's probably got something to do with the fact that this goes into negative values. That might be a trial and error job. Let's give it a whirl and see what it's doing. Drinking a nice glass of mead while I work on this tonight. It's not a common drink, but I really love it. So if anyone fancies trying a really, really good mead, see if you can pick up Waking the Demon by Bullet for My Valentine. It's actually really, really nice. The lights, by the way. For some reason, we've picked up a bug with the fake GI lights, the global illumination, where they're not inheriting the correct values until you kind of change. So even then they're not doing it right. So I've slowly been working through them one by one and replacing them with my own system. So these ones have been done. Those ones have been done. But yeah, that all needs replacing. I don't know why it suddenly started doing that. I haven't even touched them. Right, so that looks like it's the right size. The ship's in the right place. So if we do this, the exact opposite is happening of what I wanted. Brilliant. We're just getting a really, really, really tiny galaxy. That's no good. Well, at least it's doing something, eh? Yeah, not exploding is a good start. But, yeah, I'll probably steadily get more drunk as we go, and yeah, we'll see how weird the code gets. Right, so of course, that's not going to work because we're doing that backwards. So if yeah, so 500 would be double that, so that would be 10. Yeah, it's funny you should mention that. I was thinking that that wasn't particularly intuitive, but you're reducing the distance of the display range. You're not zooming in on the map. So of course reducing the display range distance means you're making the map bigger. So it does make sense, it's just not intuitive. Yeah, I suppose we could have a zoom instead, but then I suppose when it comes to the star systems and things, yeah, again, you are actually specifying a physical range, a display range. Don't know. Let's get them all done, and then we can have a look. Right, so we can't go as low as 0 because that's essentially infinitely large. So that's 10 to 1,000. So 500 would be 10. 250 would be 20. Hang on, I need to do some calculating here. So 125 would be 40. So then 30 would be 160. It doesn't feel right, but let's give it a quick try. Yeah, I think once the systems are converted to C++, then yeah, there's going to be a lot of optimization work. I mean, it's not so bad with the blueprints because none of this is running on tick. They're all event-driven processes. So blueprints or not, it doesn't really matter performance-wise. It's things which run in real time, which you really need well optimized on C++. Well, don't think that math works out. Oh, I was really hoping you could see it from the outside. Okay, so while I'm looking at that, it's not culling the edge of the galaxy map, so that's something we can fix really easily. We don't want those. Where is... Right, do you have the range specified? Yes, you do. Great. I shall steal that. Right, and then galaxy map. Let me stick a sphere mask on that. Oops, no, not on that one. On that one. And also on this one. Right, that should just make sure that the galaxy map and its associated shadow don't extend out beyond the border of the holo display itself. It's not a real shadow, it's a fake shadow. Perhaps shadow's the wrong word. A more opaque background with what to stop it becoming hard to see. That needs a bigger range. Right, let's tweak that. Etc. That should look nicer. Okay, it's not too bad. It's not too hard an edge. So I suppose the other thing we need to do, actually, because we're just scaling it without moving it, so we actually have to move the display as well to maintain alignment with the ship. Hi Grayson, yep, we're trying to scale the holo display properly to match the UI there. Yeah, the two tutorial missions are both using 11 Labs. And that is the ship's AI. Let's get rid of some of these tabs. It's better. Okay, so here's an interesting conundrum. So right now the galaxy map is centered on the middle of the bridge, and the ship itself moves around it, which is the opposite of every other mode. Now it would be easier if the map was centered on the ship, but then you'd only have half a map, kind of like that, which wouldn't look as nice. So we need to, yeah, I think we need to keep it so that it's bridge centric, but at the same time it does need to move. Yeah, because the difference between the holo display and the actual UI is that the UI is centered on the ship. is that? Okay, yeah, so this is ship-centric, so it moves according to the ship. Yeah, I think you're right there, Dave Soft. I think it has to be the case that the moment you're not at full zoom level, it's going to have to center on the ship, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Because otherwise you have to make the galaxy bigger and move the ship as well to match that scale. So yeah, that makes sense. So that makes my life even harder. So what we're having to do then is we need to take what we're doing here and then scale that. Actually, no, we don't need to move the ship any differently. We actually need to move the ship to the middle. Okay, yeah, so I think in actual fact this needs to happen. There needs to be two different modes for the galaxy mode. Yeah, so if that equals 1,000, so if we're on full scale, then we just do what we normally do. So that's normal. If we're not on full scale, then we have to. So we have to set these guys to the middle. Except for moving them down. Right, then we want to call this from here. So we want to force galaxy position update, because we want it to rerun that check and then move the ship indicator accordingly. So if it's 1,000, move the ship so that it's galaxy centric, otherwise move the ship so it's ship centric, which means we then need to adjust the location of the map itself. So the map and its background need to move in accordance to that. Yep, so we're going to move those guys. So this needs to be multiplied by our scale. Right, and that needs to be driven by this. Actually, just to sanity check this so that we know that we haven't screwed up, I think I'll just test this as is, just to make sure that the galaxy is centered on the ship properly. Okay, that worked. Backwards, but it worked. Yeah, that's not actually too terrible, centered on the ship. Yeah, obviously, as we zoom that in and out, the ship kind of needs to remain stationary there. Right, so the location needs to be inverted. So if we invert, I think it's just the X. try a minute. So we know that works. So the galaxy is now ship-centric. So the ship will stay stationary, and the galaxy will move around the ship. But yeah, it's much nicer looking when it's centralized, so we'll just have that happen. If you have any other zoom level other than 100,000 light years. So, now that we know that that is working, just keep that there. You go in there, you go in there. Okay, so that ensures those are moved. So we need to achieve a movement scale there. Again, I'm not quite sure why we're halving it here. I'd need to pick through the code and work out why I did that. But that's not needed there because we can just use that one. So that 0.5, we can probably do a similar thing here actually. So to float. So we know that 1,000 has to be 0.5. We could do 0.5 multiplied so it'd be 1 for 1,000. So I just need to work out what the 10 would be, and I shall do the same here. So we've got 0.5 and 0.6, and they get multiplied by whatever that number is. So this is where I get brain ache. So we know that 1,000 is definitely 1 or 100%. So that's our baseline. So you'd assume that 500 would be 2, because halving the range, just doubling the scale, one would assume. So 250 would be 4, which sounds right to me. Gonna give that a try and see. So 125 should be 8. Actually, no, I'm gonna put that in. Feel free to shout, "You're doing it wrong," in the comments if you can see my mistake. Yes, we know our base scale is 1,000, so that's definitely 0.5 times by 1. So 125, which is an eighth, should be 8. Let's see. Oh no, we didn't want to do that. Stop. Uh-oh. This doesn't bode well. Why is it over there? So it's moving the ship properly. So as soon as we're not at 100,000, it's moving the ship to the middle, as one would expect. Why is it not moving the galaxy? And why is it going over there? And why is it suddenly just... Oh, it's not. So why is it disobeying the sphere, the render sphere? Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's cutting it off, as it should do. But... I'd done something wrong there. Oh, I suppose for a start, we need to set these back to their normal scale. No. Oh. I know what I did wrong. I derped. But I'm also missing resetting the scale on those, so oops, so it should be 5, not 0.5. And then on this one, that should be 6. Right, that should make more sense now. Hi, Anne. Yeah, definitely. So the Magellan class it's big on purpose because I wanted to start with a large ship with a large crew, really as a proof of concept, so that we could be sure that we could do a large ship with a large crew. But I'm going to follow up with a couple of smaller ships designed around 5 to 10 crew members, if not less, because I think there's a lot of small multiplayer groups that may want a 5-man team. So it would be nice to have a much smaller, more intimate experience, something like the Millennium Falcon or Firefly. But yeah, that's definitely planned. Yeah, I think a 5-man ship is a good number. Okay, this is working. So we've got it's not centering back in the middle, but to be honest, actually, that's not... It's not quite right, because the ship's not staying fully centered. But yeah, so I think I think a 5-man crew is a good number because it covers the main roles on the ship without becoming too cumbersome, and it means you can operate without having to worry about an NPC crew. So it's literally just you and a group of friends, all doing your job together on the ship, surviving in the galaxy, and that should be good fun. So that is correct-ish. Correct-ish, because I think Sol's more there, so we're definitely not completely right. Yeah, see, this map's it's locked on exactly where it should be, and this one's starting to drift. I'm happy with the edge blur and the scale generally, but it's definitely not centering properly, and I'm not sure why that's not popping back to the middle. Is it simply because I told it not to? You know what, I think it literally is that. That should put them back in the middle. So okay, so that one needs to go a little bit further down. Just to be awkward. Okay, so that should at least put the map back where it should be. So that's fine. So obviously this isn't working quite how I expected it to. So we know that bit's working. That needs separating out. This is going to have to just be a little bit messy for now. Once it's all working nicely, I'll clean it up and comment it and all that good stuff. this ensures that the map goes back to the middle. Just check that those scales are correct. Yeah. And the locations are correct. And that location's correct. That is wrong. So this needs figuring out. And then I think the scale is fine. I think that's working okay. It's this here. That's the bit I think isn't working fine. Oh, hang on, no, that was a typo. That can't have helped. Ooh, perhaps it will work now. I've run out of mead. Time for a refill. So that's good. Ah, there we go. That's better. Okay, so we center on the galaxy at full range. We swap to the ship if we go anything less than full range. And it's staying locked solid onto the right location. We just need to get the scale all the way down to 10%. Can't quite make out the pixels. So the reason I say that is each pixel on this image represents 100 light years. So with the brightness of each pixel determining the density of stars, if you could make out the individual pixels on the map, then you could get some idea of stellar density. But it's going to blur it, but that's fine. So something else we need on this map is we need labels for the different galactic regions. We need some sector information. So like up here where you've got the sector ID, the fact that it's a spiral arm sector, I think it would be nice to have some of that information displayed on here. Maybe maybe a ring around the bottom that has some of that information on. Could be good. It's working quite well though. I'm pleased with that. nice to feather the border a little bit more, maybe. Maybe so it's not quite so solid an edge. Perhaps it will look better once it's got more information on there. Yeah, so right now it's literally just setting the value. We could do it so that it does a lerp between each value instead. There's a delay, obviously. So say we had like a half a second zoom delay, so it smoothly lerps between the two values. If you're continually pressing the button in that time, we need to continuously update the lerp. It can be done. It's something to look into as a bit of polish. But we'll get it working properly first. So 62.5 would be 16. Right, so 31.25 would be 32. 15.625 would be 64. $7.8125 be 128. That's true. Yeah, just grey them out while it's doing its thing. And of course, small transitions can be quicker than big ones. It's still bothering me that multiplying this by half works, and I don't know why. Okay, this feels extreme, but we'll see whether it is or not. Yeah, I did it for a reason at some point. I just don't know why. I still figure out why that's not coming up as well. It's probably like over there somewhere. Right. Yeah, I didn't think that was going to work. that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I could go back and look at previous streams. I don't think I even wrote any devlogs on it. Yeah, you can easily comment stuff. You can even comment individual nodes. Yeah. I can do something like that. Yeah, so this doesn't work. So that works. And that works. And then it just gets increasingly wronger from there. So if 1,000 is 100%, and 125 is 800%, then what would 10 be? How did I do it on here? I did the same thing on this. Oh, I divided it by the pixel scale. That doesn't help us. So what I did with this one is I'm basically taking the pixel dimensions of the image and then dividing that by the light years width that it covers, which doesn't translate to what we're doing here. Got this feeling that I'm missing something obvious here. I think what I'll do for now is I shall set this to a much more reasonable value, and I will think about it at another time whilst I work on the other bit of the sensors. Ooh, actually no, before I move on, I will work out why these are in the wrong place. So the game starts. We're automatically defaulting to that. Oh, I see. That'll be a default variable problem. That should fix that now. So that should now appear when the game starts. There we go. Right, so that's the base functionality restored. And we can also zoom in. Although I think... yeah, it's zooming in way too much. That's not right. Yeah, because that's supposed to just be half the galaxy, and that's way more. That's way more than double the size. Which is interesting because see, in my head that works. Except does it? Yeah, I'll be first to admit my mental arithmetic is appalling. Which is surprising, considering I'm focusing so much on astrophysics and real-world science. But yeah, when it comes to things like this, I just get these weird numerical blocks, and I'm like, it should work. It makes sense in my head, but it's not working. Like, if this mesh is a 1 meter mesh, timesing it by 5, it becomes a 5 meter mesh. Nice and simple. So if 1,000 is our baseline, 5 meters, we're timesing 5 by 1, which is 5. Nice and simple. That's what it should be. So half of that, i.e. doubling the size, would be 2. You're timesing 2 by 5, which is 10. This, to me, seems like simple math. And yet, the lower the scale, the more it goes wrong. So I'm missing something, but I shall have to go away and have a deeper think on that. In the future, do you plan to add the workshop and have people make customizable ships? Yes and no. I think in terms of modular ships, yes, that's something we'll eventually get to. But in terms of like fully customizable ships, I don't think it's going to be practical. Like, you know, given this ship here, if I turn on like that, just turn on some of these framework walls. You know, you're looking at a lot of geometry just for the framework, and then if we do like that, you know, every single one of these wall panels is running code. So you'll have a health value, and it'll have a moving part because it's going to have an access panel to get to the wall behind to access pipes and cables and things. On an entire Starship scale, you're talking probably tens of thousands of wall panels, many of which have to be uniquely sized. Like this curve here, this is a tapering curve, so every single one of these wall panels is a different size and a unique object. So workshopping something like this, I don't see it as being practical. Now, it might be the case that there are some crazy modders out there that can go to the time and effort to model an entire ship, but I think it's far more practical that we'll have a modular system where we've got connection points for all the pipes and hardware, and certain sections can only connect to certain other sections where we know that the pipes and cables are going to line up. Because don't forget that the entire ship is live wired with it's full of live infrastructure, and all that live infrastructure has to connect together, and that just doesn't strike me as being a very moddable thing. Perhaps I'm wrong, but it's just, there are so many tens of thousands of objects that are all running code. It just doesn't seem practical. Yeah, so a workshop for campaign missions, I think that's definitely something we'd like to see. There are definitely challenges to that. So it's things like where are the NPCs going? How is the NPC dialogue being handled? So it'd have to be the sort of system where, I don't know, take this corridor for example. You tell the NPC, come to this location. So as part of the script, you'd have to get them to path there. And once they're actually in that location, then fire off the dialogue, which is pretty much how we're going to handle the mission scripting anyway. But yeah, I think if we can build a robust system for actually scripting and building missions, then that's definitely something we could workshop, which would make the game sort of infinitely extendable, because the community can just come in and just create missions. And when it comes to the actual single player campaign, we want to run it in the sense that you go to sleep at the end of your day, and then when you wake up in your crew quarters, the new day is going to play out, like an episode of a sci-fi show. So, take Star Trek for example. You have an episode where a thing happens and the crew deal with that thing for that episode. And we'd like each day on the ship to play out like that. So each day is a episode. So, if we had a scripting system where players could create episodes and you could build up a library of those episodes, then you could have hundreds of thousands of potential scenarios to wake up to on the ship, which could be really cool. Yep. And to be honest, another thing which I think would be quite cool is for people to make their own shows within the game. Get their own voice actors, do their own dialogue, and actually literally write their own filmed episodes on the ship. And that's why we included the camera drones, so people can do that. Okay, so now that the holo display's practically working for that, the next thing I wanted to do was have a look at the long-range sensors. So what we don't have right now is the ability to actually target anything. Yeah, so we've got our list view. Yeah, absolutely. I think, people, love writing fan fiction for different shows, and really we're providing the studio space and the camera suite and the actors to be able to create any kind of story you like, and especially when we implement the GM tools, so the ship can be moved and events can be triggered and that sort of thing. It could be an amazing tool for actually producing sci-fi episodes within the game. And yeah, we would absolutely encourage people to do that. It would be really cool to see. Right, so now I need to remember how I did this bit too. Right, so sensor mode. Okay, so we grab our sector locations, and that's essentially stars. We filter out the ones that are out of range or are the wrong type, and then we add list items. Tactical is going to essentially be after we've implemented aliens. So the very next thing, I say the next thing, it's kind of the current thing at the same time. So on here we've got the short range sensor button, and that's where all the planetary scanning functionality is going to be implemented. Once we've implemented the ability to scan a planet, then at the same time I'll be implementing all of the alien civilization code. So all the dice rolls that create all the different alien civilizations will be working, and you'll be able to get that data out when you do the planetary scan. And from there, really, the next step is to physicalize those aliens. So once we know who they are, we've got all the dice rolls done, we know what kind of civilization they are, we can then look at starting to generate things in space, so ships, stations, some kind of physical presence. And then from that point, we'll start to implement the tactical side of things. I guess that's the tactical station in its fully operational state. Before then, I'll probably just add a panel and the ability to just fire the weapons into space without actually targeting anything. The whole tactical system is a whole new scanning suite, holo display mode, the ability to target individual subsystems on an alien ship. There's a lot of bits and pieces that need to go into that. Yeah, not anytime soon, I think, is the answer. But it'll be once we have scannable planets data on aliens, then we'll start looking at the ability to shoot at them. Because, humans are going to human. Well, back in the day, I've always been fascinated in building starships. I guess I started doing it with Lego when I was a child. I went on to just messing around with interior environments on the old Quake engine back in the 90s. That progressed into building the Enterprise refit in Minecraft, and I got frustrated with the lack of detail with the blocks, so then I moved on to modeling the refits in SketchUp, doing it more of an architectural thing, and that caught the attention of the guys that were making the Stage 9 Enterprise D recreation, so I joined them as a developer back in 2017, towards the end of 2017. That then got a C&D. So I moved on to co-founding Messy Desk with those guys. I was co-project lead for the Orville fan experience. But throughout that whole time, this is kind of what I wanted to be doing. I really wanted to build my own starship, like completely, thinking about the structural framework and how we'd build it and how would the wiring work, where would you put it, what systems would be needed, and I always kind of had that at the back of my mind. So kind of that was where this came from. I just decided to just go ahead and do it, and that's kind of where we are today. Okay, so the way the sensors work now for the long range is I've changed how the targets are listed. It used to just be a flat list of child widgets, and performance-wise, that's awful because each one of those widgets is a separate widget. But UE does something called what is it? These text boxes, these list views, and what it does is it only displays on screen the things you have scrolled into view. As soon as you scroll away from those objects, they're no longer rendered, which means you can have practically an infinite number of things in the list, and it doesn't matter because it's only holding the things in memory, the things you're actually looking at. So for our purposes, where we've got thousands of stars in a list, that's perfect. And I'm also building it into a nested tree as well, just to make it easier to navigate. But it does work very differently to what it did before because of that. So I just need to build back the ability to highlight things, scan them, capture the target location from the things you click on. So this list view gets populated by list items, and they are a list item class, which is what this is. So this is list item level 0 because it's the root of the tree, and then this is the actual list item itself. So when we click this button, that should trigger this functionality. So I'm just thinking about how do we then communicate with this parent widget, which I don't think it has any knowledge of. I might need to use another global event for that. Thanks, Brayden. That's appreciated. We're 3 years in development as of this January just gone. It's been a crazy quick 3 years. In fact, to be honest, the past 6 months I would say has been the quickest. Time is just disappearing so quickly. And every week that goes by, I just feel like I haven't done anything, or I haven't got enough done. Yeah, progress is being made, but it's just painfully slow. At least it feels painfully slow. Okay, so are we setting the parent? Yes, we are. Great. Okay, so we are referencing the parent widget, which is helpful. So we'll grab that. So that should be a reference to this list item. So what we want to do is on the parent, we need to give it the sector location details. So we've got there. So we need the sector location. And if we grab the local and galactic coordinates from that. So we want to tell the parent about that information and which list item's sending it. Yeah, absolutely. I do use GitLab and push to that fairly regularly, but predominantly that's just for backing things up. I was writing daily dev diaries. Well, not so much a diary, more of a task log. And I need to get back into the habit of doing that. It also helps with writing patch notes, because if you've got a daily log of everything. Wow, too much mead. If you have a daily log of everything you've done, it makes writing patch logs much easier. Right, let's just just to confirm that we're actually getting that data, let's see if we can run a custom event on here. We'll just call it test. And then we want a couple of vectors. Galactic coords, local coords, and then we will do a print text, format text, galactic, and local. Yeah, I find that when I look back over, say, like a year's worth of work, it's surprising how much you get done in a year just by doing something every day. You know, after a few days, you feel like you've done nothing, but over the course of a whole year, you think, wow, I've done loads. Ooh, I don't want to have to cast to this. I'll replace this cast once I confirm it's working. So when we click on each target, it should give us its coordinates. So engineering gameplay during combat is most likely going to be running around fixing stuff. There's not a huge... See, one of the problems with doing it realistically is, you know, in a typical sci-fi game, or a typical space sim rather, you've got that, you know, that power triangle where you've got the shields, weapons, and engines, and you're shifting power between those three things depending on, you know, your tactical situation, which is fine as a concept until you start modeling systems for real, and then you realize that the power requirements of these different systems can be vastly different. Like, I guess you see that typical sci-fi trope where the ship goes onto emergency power and all the lights go red. It's like that literally makes no difference to the power consumption whether the lights are red or white. And the amount of power that the lighting and life support use versus the power that the weapons or the shields use is so insignificant that it's pointless to channel any power from life support or lighting, because it's like a drop in the ocean power wise. And that's like the boring side of doing it for real. But I guess, when it comes to weapons and shields, there's definitely some continuity there power wise. So engineering could certainly have a role there, prioritizing power between those systems. But yeah, I think mostly for engineering's sake it's going to be keeping things running. Sensors wise, I've been thinking about whether or not to have the sensor station doing the work of scanning enemy ships to pick out targets of interest, or whether or not to do that on the tactical panel. Because you need to think about what the tactical guy is actually doing. So the ship's AI is going to be doing the work of physically pointing the turrets at the enemy targets. The player won't need to get involved in physically targeting the physical object itself. But on the UI, the tactical officer needs to be able to make informed choices on which things to target, and then obviously decide how much power to put into the weapon. Is it going to be a rapid burst of shots, or are they going to charge up for a longer period to do a more powerful single shot? It's those kind of decisions that tactical are going to be making. So do we want the tactical officer doing the analysis of the enemy vessel to scan various parts of it to work out what is the most optimal target? Because if you hand that off to the sensors console, then you're taking work away from the tactical console. So I think the answer to that question is it's going to have to come out during playtesting. So we'll see how much work each person has to do during that event, and then balance it accordingly so everyone's got some kind of an input. Right, let's see whether or not this works. Thanks. Yeah, I think with a lot of it, it's we come up with the ideas and we think, right, this would be cool, and then you actually try it and you think, actually, that's not working. So most of the things that aren't implemented yet will change once they've been implemented, because once you try in anger, so to speak, you realize that some things don't work quite as well as you think they would. Yeah, there we go. That's working nicely. So, yeah, I happen to know off the top of my head that's correct for Sol. Great. Okay, so that's an interesting bug. Why did that not render the whole list then? Yeah, I think one limitation of this system is that if you expand a star system like this and scroll off the screen, when you come back it will be minimized again. And that seems to be a limitation of the list view widget itself. Again, because once it's off screen, it no longer exists, which is why we can have over 1,000 items in this list without it struggling whatsoever. Whereas before, we had to limit it to 100. Any more than 100, and it just ground to a halt and caused real performance issues. But now we can have thousands without breaking a sweat. But we do have that trade-off that it will disappear. Oh, look, it's done it again. So if I just touch my mouse wheel, it all comes back. So I may have to just automatically have it do that in the background when you minimize all of the trees. This is going to take a bit of tweaking and polish to get right. But yeah, so now that we're reporting back on the coordinates, I can use that data to update these. So at least that's good. And then we can then send that to the helm, which means once that's working, I can start releasing dev builds properly, because then that means the sensors are working again, which is great. It'd be good to get back to that state. Okay, well, Claire is giving me hand signals, reminding me of the time, so I'm going to call it a night there. Thank you once again for everyone that's joined in and watched the stream. It's great to have you here, and hopefully, again, it's not monotonous and boring, and it's actually entertaining to watch. If it is, I'll keep doing it. As a reminder, the Kickstarter goes live on the 1st of March at, I expect, 11 AM UTC. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So that's on Friday, I think. Hang on, let me just check the calendar. Yes. So the 1st of March is this coming Friday, which means the Kickstarter will be live before the next stream. So yeah, the next stream should be an interesting one, because it will be me constantly refreshing Kickstarter. Okay, right, so I'm going to go to bed. It's almost midnight, and I think that's good enough for one evening. So thank you again, everyone, and I shall see you on the next stream.